Getty Foundation is very involved in art restoration and other areas of art conservation. And they had a workshop that they had held some years before they approached us, where it was identified during that workshop that they need to have a better adhesives for art conservation. The one that they were using at that time was not performing up to par. They had this issue where the temperature that it was needed to get it right and activate it was higher than what they wanted to use that application. They were worried that these paintings could get damaged by that high temperature. And so it was pretty interesting. Getty Foundation figured out that Akron was the place that they would like to work with because we had a really good reputation in polymer science. We had good reputation in adhesives. So when we started the project, I recruited a former student of mine, Dharamdeep Jain, a really excellent student. He had worked for some years in an adhesive company. I pitched this idea to him that he had a chance of working an art restoration project. He jumped on board.
When this opportunity came, it was a very exciting one for me because it was a blend of arts and science. So my role was to develop this formula from the scratch. So based on my experience, past experience in my PhD with adhesives and some industrial experience in developing adhesives for different kinds of applications.
And so what we did was, with his contribution, he really looked at the literature. He came up with ideas of not just one solution, but maybe potentially 5 or 6 different solutions. And then we spent a little bit of time here in the labs to make sure we test out which of these 5 formulations would be ideal. And then that's resulted in identifying 3 formulations we thought were really could really test. And then what we did was we had a very interesting protocol in terms of the process that we use after that. So once we were sure in the lab, then we identified 6 or 7 partners within the museums around the US and some outside of US, where we shipped some samples of ABC to them. They applied it in small test strips. Some of them actually applied it in a larger canvases. And what they did was, while they used those materials, they gave us feedback whether they liked A, B, or C, or whether there was a property of something that was right for them. Then we took that feedback and adjusted things that we needed to do. And then we identified the one that was actually the one which everybody liked. Then we took that formulation and then we worked with our partners in Cleveland Art Museum, and we started doing a little bit more larger scaling testing. And from that, we scaled up to actually having 2 workshops. One is in New York and the other was in Italy. And in those 2 workshops, we had maybe about 25, 30 students in those workshops who tested this thing out. And then we collected that feedback from them. And that's how we finally narrowed down to a product that we have now forwarded it for commercialization. And then we had a discussion of what we should call it as a brand. And I was really pleased and happy that they're going to call it Biva 371 Akron. So I want to see that Akron name out there in all the museums. That is exciting to see.
Now when I go to museums, I see things in a very different way. It's very exciting to see different kinds of materials which are up for exhibition. And especially when I look at a painting, I can see what all I have gained through this project. I can see what all nuances are there in a painting, like when you try to preserve it or conserve it. I can see some things which I have been working on it in the project. So now I see it in a very different way as what I was doing it before I started the project. So